The glass and steel building looked different at night. During the day it was all reflections and noise and rush, but after hours it became quiet and bright like a clean stage. The underground parking level hummed with the soft echo of fluorescent lights and the low, steady breath of the ventilation fans. Aisha pushed her janitor cart along the painted lanes, the wheels making a gentle rubbery whisper. Her cart held the usual things: mop, rags, a bottle of cleaner, a small broom, and tucked beside the extra liners was a little metal box with a latch, her small toolbox. She kept it not to break rules, but because she liked to fix small things when she could. A loose screw. A wobbly locker hinge. A door closer that hissed too hard. It made the place feel cared for. Aisha moved with an easy rhythm. She had learned to work quietly but not invisibly. She greeted the security guard at the ramp with a warm evening, and he nodded back with the relaxed look of someone who knew she never caused trouble and always left things better than she found them. She was in her late 20s. Her uniform was neat, and her hair was pulled back under a simple cap. People often saw the uniform first. Aisha had learned not to mind that. People had their habits. She had hers too: notice, listen, think. The night shift pattern suited her life. She could check in on her mother in the mornings, help set medication reminders, and still make it to her part-time classes when they lined up. Lately, the classes had been on pause. Bills had a way of making choices for you. But Aisha kept her notes, kept her manuals, and kept her hands busy whenever she could. She had grown up in a small neighborhood garage, sweeping floors before she could reach the workbench and handing wrenches to her mother as if passing gifts. The smell of metal and dust and clean oil was part of her childhood. She did not talk much about that at work, because there was nothing to prove to anyone. Still, the instinct remained: when something failed, look, listen, and figure it out one clear step at a time. She parked the cart near a row of company cars and checked a spill reported earlier. Nothing much, maybe a cup of coffee someone had dropped in a hurry. She mopped the small brown half circle, wrung the mop with 2 precise pulls, and looked up when she heard the lift doors open. 3 people stepped out, speaking in quick, tired voices. 2 managers Aisha recognized by face, and 1 man every person in the building would recognize: Marcus Vale, the CEO. He had that worn look of someone who had used up all his words in meetings. He walked straight toward a vintage coupe that always drew a glance, even from people who did not care about cars. It was cherry red and glossy, with calm chrome trim and old, kind curves. It fit the CEO in the way a well-made suit did. Marcus clicked the unlock button and slid into the driver's seat. The doors shut. The parking level went still for a second. Then there was a sharp, dry sound, an impatient turn of a key, a click, and then silence. Another try. Click. Still silence. He opened the door, frowning, and tried again from outside, as if distance would change the result. Click. No crank. The 2 managers glanced at each other in that way people do when the person in charge looks stuck and nobody knows if the right move is to help or to wait. Aisha had heard that sound many times. It was a small sound but full of information. She did not move closer. She stayed at her cart and kept her eyes on her work for a moment because she had learned to read a room before entering it. The security guard walked over, concerned but cautious. "Everything okay, sir?" he asked. Marcus rubbed a hand across his jaw. "It won't start. It's new to me, this car, but it's been fine all week." He tried again, as if it might change because he wanted it to. Click. One of the managers, the taller one with a badge on a bright lanyard, tried a joke to lighten the air. "Maybe the car knows it's Friday," he said. It didn't land. Marcus blew out a breath, stepped back from the car, and looked around the garage as if somewhere there would be a solution, sitting politely on a chair with its hand up. His eyes fell on Aisha's cart. On the mop. On the small metal toolbox. He walked over, followed by the two managers and the guard. Aisha turned the mop wringer once more and looked up respectfully. "Evening," she said. Marcus nodded, impatient in a tired way. He was not unkind, he was stretched thin and caught in a small helpless moment that felt large to him because of the day behind it. "Do you know anyone down here who can jump a car at this hour?" he asked. "Or call maintenance?" "Maintenance leaves at 9, sir," the guard said. "I can try to reach the on-call." Aisha spoke carefully, because nobody likes advice they didn't ask for. "If it's only a click, it might not be the battery alone," she said in a quiet voice. "It might be a loose ground or a sticky starter. But a check can tell." The taller manager gave a small laugh, the kind that is more about nerves than humor. "Hey," he said, "if you can fix it, the car's yours." The words came out in a joking tone, light and breezy. People sometimes used that tone to push away their own discomfort. The second manager smirked. The guard didn't smile. Marcus lifted an eyebrow and, in the mood of the moment, repeated it, half distracted, half showy, "Sure. Fix it, and it's yours." He waved a hand toward the car, as if tossing a ball into the air just to see it fly. In the echo of the garage, the words felt louder than they were. They hung there for a breath. Aisha did not laugh. Her cheeks warmed, not with anger, but with the weight of a choice. She did not want a scene. She did not want to embarrass anyone. She did want to be careful with herself. She looked at the guard, then at Marcus. "Sir," she said, voice steady, "do you mean that?" She spoke plainly, without challenge. She had learned that plain words can be strong all by themselves. The laughter faded. Jokes are fragile when you ask if they are real. Marcus looked at her, really looked now, seeing not only the uniform but the person inside it. He seemed to hear his own words again, and maybe he heard the impatience inside them. He rubbed his jaw once more. "I shouldn't have said it like that," he said. He paused. "But yes. If you can fix it here, right now, safely, and it starts, I will make it worth your effort." He did not repeat "the car is yours," not exactly, and yet everyone had heard the first version. The air tightened a little between the two statements. The guard shifted his stance. Aisha nodded very slightly. "I don't touch anyone's car without permission. If you want me to try, say it clearly in front of him," she said, gesturing politely to the guard, "and your managers. And I'll be careful and transparent with every step I take. If you prefer I don't, that is also fine." The taller manager glanced at Marcus, surprised by how calm and orderly Aisha sounded. Marcus straightened. The small thoughtless moment was gone, in its place, a more careful one. "Okay," he said. "I give permission. You can try. Please be careful. Everyone is a witness that I said this." He looked at the guard. "Note the time and that I gave consent." The guard nodded and spoke into his radio softly, making a quick incident note. Aisha exhaled, not as a sigh but as a way to settle her focus, the way she used to settle when her mother said, "Okay, your turn, talk me through it," at the garage years ago. She rolled her cart closer, set the mop aside so it wouldn't be underfoot, and reached for the small metal box. The latch clicked open, familiar and kind. Inside, a compact adjustable wrench, a small wire brush, a mini flashlight, a few zip ties, a length of clean rag, a pair of snug gloves, and a little pouch of baking soda packets she kept for neutralizing small acid spills from the building batteries. Nothing fancy. Just things that made small jobs safer and clearer. Before she touched anything, Aisha spoke her plan out loud. She had learned that talking through steps helped people feel safe and kept herself honest. "First, we listen again to confirm the symptom, it clicks but does not crank, correct?" Marcus nodded. "Second, I'll look at the battery connections. If there is obvious corrosion, I will clean it. Third, I'll check the main ground strap to the chassis. Fourth, I will look at the fuse box for anything obvious like a loose main fuse or relay. I will not force anything. If at any point you want me to stop, I will stop. The second manager raised an eyebrow, as if he had not expected a map but only a guess. The taller manager stopped smirking. The atmosphere shifted by a few small degrees, still tense, but edged by curiosity now. The garage did that soft, big room quiet again, like it had been waiting for a cue. Aisha walked to the front of the coupe and lifted the hood release gently. She found the catch with patient fingers and raised the hood. The engine bay was clean but not spotless, a car that was used, not just dressed for show. She set the hood prop carefully, checked that it held, and pulled on her gloves. The battery sat near the firewall. The terminals looked stable, but a crust of green-white had begun to bloom at the edges where the clamp met the post. Not a mountain, but not nothing. She leaned in with the wire brush, paused, and instead mixed a little baking soda with water in a small cup lid, stirring it with a folded edge of rag to make a safe paste. Corrosion can block good contact, she said as she worked. This neutralizes the acid residue. I'll clean, then snug the clamps, then try again. If it still only clicks, we'll keep looking. She moved carefully, turning the brush in small circles, watching the crust soften and fizz into harmless foam. She wiped, rinsed, wiped again, and waited a moment for the surface to dry. Then she used the adjustable wrench to snug each clamp, not to crush, just to firm. Her knuckles stayed clear of edges. She checked the cable that led from the negative terminal to the chassis. It looked a little tired where it met the mount, no obvious break, but not as tight as it could be. She looked up. I'm going to snug this ground, she said. If it spins, I'll stop. I'm not forcing anything. Marcus nodded, eyes steady now. People sometimes changed when they were given a simple plan to follow. The managers stepped closer, phones half forgotten in their hands. The guard stood by with a small, protective patience. Aisha snugged the ground connection gently until it held with a firm, honest grip. She looked at the fuse box cover and traced the diagram sticker with her eyes, noting the main fuses and the starter relay location. She did not pull anything yet. Instead, she asked Marcus to try the key once more, but only when she was clear of moving parts and the tools were set aside. Please, she said, stepping back, turn the key to start and hold it for 1 second, then let go. Marcus slid into the seat and tried. Click. The sound was clean now, sharper than before, like a door latch closing. Aisha's eyes narrowed in thought, not in frustration. Thank you, she said. That helped. Next, I'll check the relay seating. I won't change the relay, I'll just press it firmly in case it is loose from heat or vibration. She removed the fuse box cover, located the starter relay, and pressed down with a steady thumb until she felt the resistant little there of plastic meeting its socket fully. She did the same with the neighboring main fuse, just a gentle firming touch, not a push that would harm anything. She replaced the cover with care. Okay, she said, one more test. Same as before. Just 1 second. Marcus turned the key. Click again, strong but alone. No crank. A thin ripple of doubt moved through the small audience. The taller manager ran a hand through his hair. The second manager lifted his phone slightly. The guard glanced at Aisha, and his face said, without words, take your time. Aisha breathed in and let the breath go. This was not discouraging. It was information. Many times, the clear, strong click meant the solenoid was working but the starter itself stuck, or power was not getting where it needed to go under load. Her mind built a simple tree of possibilities. She would not rush. She would not pretend certainty where there was none. She also would not retreat into the shape other people expected of her. She had a process. The process would carry her. She looked at Marcus kindly but directly. "We have two clear signs now," she said. 1. The battery connections were dirty and a little loose. We fixed that. 2. The relay was possibly not fully seated, we confirmed it is now. The click is now strong, which means the signal is arriving. The next check will be near the starter itself. I won't remove anything. I will only listen from a safe position and, if it's appropriate, use a gentle tap to free a stuck part. I will explain as I go. Do you consent to that?" Marcus stood by the open door of his car. The earlier joke had fully left his face. In its place was a careful attention. He looked not only at his car but at the person in front of it. "Yes," he said. "I consent. Please proceed." He held her eyes for a second longer and added, in a quieter voice, "And thank you." Aisha gave a small nod. She set her tools in neat order on the clean concrete, checked that her gloves were snug, and angled her flashlight into the lower part of the engine bay where the starter sat tucked by the transmission bell housing. She angled her body so nothing would be near moving parts if the engine came to life. She reviewed, in her mind, all the safety steps she had been taught since she was a child at her mother's side: clear clothes, clear hands, clear path, communicate clearly, never guess when you can know. The garage felt even quieter now, though the lights still hummed and a car somewhere on the ramp gave a soft echo as it climbed to the street. Aisha was not afraid. She was not proud either. She was simply present, standing inside a small test that meant more than it looked like. In the space between a careless joke and a careful promise, she had made a choice, to ask for clarity, to accept, and to try. She would proceed step by step. She would honor the permission given. And, whatever happened next, she would hold herself steady because steady was what she knew best. The air in the underground level felt cooler as Aisha stepped to the side of the red coupe, set her flashlight on a low beam, and checked that the hood prop was firm. She spoke each step in a calm voice so everyone heard and understood. She had learned that when people are anxious, clear words are a light. "First, I'll confirm the symptom," she said. "Please turn the key for 1 second, then stop." Marcus slid into the seat, turned the key, and the sound came again, one sharp, confident click, like a tiny hammer inside the engine bay. No crank. No rumble. Just the click and the quiet after. "Thank you," Aisha said. "Now I'll check if the battery is strong under a small load. Headlights on, please." The lights washed the concrete smoothly, steady and bright, not dim or yellow. "They look healthy," she said. "Horn, please." Marcus pressed it, the sound was full and even, not weak. "Battery might be fine," she said. "But connections can still block power under heavy load." She leaned over the battery again, inspecting what she had already cleaned. The terminals were clean now, her earlier work had dissolved the crust. She reached down and gave each clamp a careful twist. The positive was snug. The negative moved the tiniest bit, a small rotation that was almost nothing, but almost nothing matters in electricity. She adjusted the wrench and tightened it a fraction more until it felt like an honest hold, not a pretend one. The taller manager moved closer, curiosity beating back his earlier smile. "You really know what you're doing," he said, not mocking this time. "I know how to go one step at a time," Aisha said. "That helps." She traced the negative cable with her eyes to where it met the chassis. The ground strap's fabric weave looked a touch worn at the edges. Not broken. Not pretty either. She touched the mount, felt it with 2 fingers, and saw a sheen of dust at the contact point. She loosened the bolt a quarter turn, wiped the surface with a clean edge of rag, and snugged it back with steady pressure, careful not to overdo it. "If the path to ground is weak," she explained, "the starter won't get what it needs. We tidy the path." The security guard angled his flashlight to help, keeping a soft distance like someone spotting a friend on a ladder. The second manager lifted his phone, then lowered it again as if he couldn't decide what story he wanted to tell later. Aisha kept her attention on the car. "Let's try again," she said. "1 second only." Marcus turned the key. The click came again, this time with a cleaner, sharper snap. It sounded like attention. "That sound is useful," Aisha said. "It tells us the signal is reaching the starter solenoid. The question is whether the starter motor itself is moving. Right now, it sounds like it isn't." The taller manager frowned. "So, is that good news or bad news?" "It's news," Aisha said gently. "News is always helpful." She replaced the fuse box cover she had checked earlier, then paused and looked inside the cabin. "Can you put the car in neutral?" she asked. "Some cars won't start if a safety switch gets fussy." "We'll try neutral to rule it out." Marcus nodded, moved the shifter, and tried again. Click. Still no crank. "Okay," Aisha said softly. She stepped back to look at the whole picture, the way her mother had taught her in the garage when she was younger. "After you study a small part, step back and see the system." She touched the hood lightly, as if it were a friend's shoulder. "I'm going to check the starter area next. I won't remove anything. I'll only listen and look." She turned to the guard. "Would you please stand here, just to make sure nobody passes behind me while the key turns? I'll keep clear of any moving parts." The guard nodded and took position, watchful and calm. Aisha lowered her flashlight beam into the engine bay, tracing cables with her eyes. The starter sat low and a bit hidden. She could not see the entire unit, but she could see enough. No obvious broken wire. No loose large cable flopping where it shouldn't. She listened again in her memory, that strong single click. It suggested the solenoid was throwing, but the motor wasn't spinning. It could be internal wear, a stuck spot, or high resistance she hadn't found yet. She would not assume, she would test a little more. "Can you turn the key again while I watch the dome light?" she asked. "If it drops way down when you try, that tells us the battery is being asked for a heavy load but not delivering enough. If it stays bright, then current isn't getting pulled. Either result gives us a clue." Marcus turned the key. The dome light dipped a hair, then returned. "Small dip," Aisha said. "Which supports what we're hearing. The solenoid engages, but the motor doesn't spin." The second manager cleared his throat. "Is this safe?" he asked toward the guard, not unkind but clearly worried about rules. "I mean, for the company." The guard glanced at Aisha, then at Marcus. "He gave permission," the guard said. "She's explaining every step. There's no hazard so far." The taller manager pulled out his phone again, this time to make a call. "I'm calling on-call maintenance," he said. "Just to have them aware." He spoke into the phone, explained the situation, listened, and then paused. "They say," he reported, "they'd prefer no one touches the car except certified staff." Aisha looked up, steady. "I respect that," she said. "It is your decision, sir." She looked at Marcus, not at the managers. "I can stop now. Or I can continue carefully with one more step that might free a stuck part. I will not remove parts or change the car. I will only use a gentle tap on the starter housing while the key is turned, which is a known method to unstick a solenoid momentarily. If you prefer not to do that, I'll step back." The garage held its quiet breath. Marcus stood by the open door of his car, hand on the roof. The strain that had stiffened his shoulders earlier had shifted into attention. He was thinking not only about a car and a work schedule, but also about what had been said in a careless tone a few minutes before. He looked from the hood to Aisha. "On-call maintenance," he said into the taller manager's phone, "this is Marcus Vale. I appreciate your caution. I gave permission here. We're not replacing anything. It's a basic test. I'll take responsibility. He ended the call, then looked at Aisha. Proceed, please. Safely. Aisha nodded once. She set her tools in a neat row on the concrete and checked the path her arms would take if the engine woke. She adjusted her stance so her sleeves, gloves, and hair were all well clear. She looked at the wooden handle of her mop, smooth, strong, clean. It would reach the starter housing without her needing to put her hands into cramped spaces. She would use it only if the path was safe and only with gentle taps. No guesswork. No rush. Before she did anything, she took a small pause to center herself. It was not drama, it was focus. She thought briefly of the neighborhood garage years ago, the late afternoons when schoolwork was done and the sun set slow and warm on the street while she organized wrenches by size. Her mother would test her, "Tell me what you see. Then tell me what you know." And Aisha would say, "I see a car that clicks but does not crank. I know the battery looks strong and the connections are clean. I know the signal reaches the solenoid. I know the motor does not spin. I know there is a simple thing we can try that sometimes frees a stuck part." Thinking it through like that turned nerves into steps. As she prepared, a soft mechanical whir rose from across the level as another car exited up the ramp, then faded away. The echo left the garage even more silent. The second manager, perhaps feeling the weight of his earlier joke, cleared his throat and found a new tone. Do you need another light?" he asked, offering his phone flashlight. His voice had settled into something more human now. "Thank you," Aisha said. "Please hold it here so it doesn't cast glare into the driver's eyes." He did, careful and steady. The taller manager put away his phone completely and watched with his hands on his hips, not in challenge but in interest. The guard kept his position, ready to warn if anyone walked into the area. Aisha leaned slightly, lined up the wooden handle through a clear gap to where the starter sat, and then paused. She looked to Marcus. "One more thing," she said, her voice simple. "If it freezes and the engine turns, please be ready to release the key right away. We don't want surprise revs." "Understood," he said. She withdrew the handle and didn't tap yet. She wanted one more piece of information. "Before I do that," she said, "I want to feel the big cable on the starter for looseness, without touching metal to metal. I won't pull. I'll just check if it is clearly loose." She used a long plastic trim tool from her kit, not conductive, to nudge the thick cable gently. It felt firm. She nodded, satisfied, and withdrew the tool. A voice echoed from the far side of the level. Someone from a late working team had entered, saw the small crowd, and slowed. The guard gave a small hand signal that said, "All good, keep moving," and the person moved on. Aisha exhaled again, steady and quiet. She ran a fingertip over the glove seam as if to remind herself that everything was in place. "Okay," she said. "Here is the plan. I will place the wooden handle so its tip lightly touches the starter housing. When you turn the key, I will give one firm, controlled tap. If the starter is stuck, this can free it. If nothing happens, we will stop and reassess. If you want me to stop at any moment, I will." Marcus nodded. "I won't stop you." She didn't move yet. "One last confirmation," she said. She turned to the taller manager and the second manager. "You both witnessed permission." They shifted, a little embarrassed now at the memory of the first words. "Yes," the taller manager said. "We witnessed." "And you, sir," she said to the guard. "Yes," the guard said. "I witnessed." "Thank you," Aisha said. She smiled, not because anything was funny, but because gratitude steadies people. She set the wooden handle in place and tested the angle. It reached comfortably. She adjusted her feet, making sure her balance was good, that no tools were behind her heels, that her path backward was clear in case she needed to step away quickly. She raised her eyes and met Marcus's gaze across the hood. "On your signal," she said. Marcus drew a breath, the kind that starts a small chapter. He turned the key to the edge of start and held for a second. "Ready?" Aisha watched his hands, then the engine, then the space around her with the calm focus of someone used to neat, careful work. "Now," she said. He turned the key fully. The click sounded crisp, bright. Aisha lifted her wrist and gave one firm, controlled tap on the starter housing with the wooden handle. Nothing moved. She did not let disappointment climb into her voice. "Release," she said gently. "Thank you." He released. The garage returned to its steady hum of lights and ventilation. The taller manager shifted like he'd been holding his breath. The second manager looked at the floor, then at Aisha, unsure what to feel. The guard stayed still, trusting the process. Aisha kept her calm. "Sometimes it takes 2 tries," she said. "If you agree, we will try once more. If it does nothing, I will stop and advise we call a tow or wait for maintenance." Marcus nodded. "Let's try again." "Ready," she said, placing the handle so it would touch the same point with the same control. "Now." He turned the key. The click came sharp. Aisha made the second controlled tap. A faint sound stirred like a deep machine thinking about waking, then faded. She lifted the handle away, thoughtful. It was the smallest hint, the kind you could miss if you were impatient. She did not chase it with a rush. She stepped back and let her breath out slowly. "I heard a change," she said. "A small one. That tells me we are close to freeing it. We will not keep trying many times, because that would not be kind to the system. I suggest one more attempt, and then we stop." The guard looked at her with quiet respect. The taller manager tried for hope with his eyes. The second manager, who had at first wanted only a story to tell later, now wanted to see a person complete a careful plan. Aisha wiped a dot of harmless dust from the handle, set it back to the same point, checked her stance, and lifted her chin a little, as if aligning the last line of a diagram in her mind. "On your signal," she said again, and her voice was light but steady, like a straight level placed on a shelf. Marcus turned the key to ready. He looked at her, and in that look there was no mockery, no show. Only trust. "Now," she said. He turned the key. The click rang clear. Aisha gave the gentlest, smartest tap she could give, not hard, not soft, but exactly enough. The sound that came back was not yet a roar, not yet victory, but it was different, a deeper tug inside the engine bay, a half-turn that died before it became a spin. The crowd felt it, their shoulders lifted in unison, a single breath. Aisha held up her hand, palm soft. "Release," she said quickly. That was the sign we needed. She removed the handle, gathered her tools into neat order, and looked at Marcus. Her eyes were bright, not with excitement, but with knowing. "We stop here for a minute," she said. "Let the heat settle. Then, with your consent, we'll make one controlled attempt to free it fully. If it works, it will start. If it does not, we call it and wait for maintenance. Either way, we have learned exactly where the problem lies." She stepped back from the car and rested a hand lightly on the hood, feeling the settled quiet of metal. The taller manager put his hands in his pockets and looked at the floor with a tiny smile that contained something close to respect. The second manager rubbed his neck, as if shaking off a habit he did not want to keep. The guard watched them all and then looked back at Aisha with that small, steady nod people give each other when they have seen careful work done well. Above them, the elevator doors opened and closed, and far away a car horn on the street sounded once like a punctuation mark. The fluorescent lights hummed. The ventilation breathed. Aisha set the wooden handle on the cart and waited the short, sensible minute she had asked for. When it passed, she lifted the handle again and looked at Marcus, ready to finish what she had begun, steady as ever, with the whole small world of that quiet garage watching and learning a new way to measure a person. The short, sensible minute passed like a held breath. Aisha used it well. She checked her stance again, cleared the floor around her feet, and ran her eyes over each point she had touched before, the clean battery terminals, the snug ground, the fuse box cover set back in place. She did not let excitement push her, she let steps guide her. The two managers stood quieter now, the early joking gone. The guard watched the ramp and the small circle around the car with steady care. Marcus stayed by the driver's door, one hand on the edge of the roof, his face open in a way it hadn't been at the start of the night. He looked ready to listen. "All right," Aisha said softly. "We'll try once more. Same plan. One tap, controlled. If it starts, please release the key and keep your foot off the pedal. Let it idle. If it does not, we stop. Agreed?" "Agreed," Marcus said, voice low. Aisha slid the wooden handle into position as if lining up a ruler on a clean page. She checked that nothing could catch on clothing or gloves. She glanced at the guard. He gave a tiny nod, area clear. She looked at Marcus, then at the shadowed shape of the starter housing below. "Ready," she said. Marcus turned the key to the edge of start, paused for her signal, then pushed it to start. The starter clicked sharp, bright. Aisha gave the tap. Not big. Not showy. Exact. This time the sound answered with life. The stuck part freed. The motor grabbed with a low, strong spin, and the engine turned over like a deep breath. A half-second later, it caught, then smoothed into a steady idle that filled the concrete level with a warm, even hum. It was not loud. It felt like a room that had been waiting for music and finally got it. Aisha lifted the handle away and stepped back, clear and calm. She raised one palm weight and watched the engine bay for a count in her head, 1, 2, 3. No shakes. No strange smells. No warning lights flaring on the dash. Just an old engine doing what old engines do when they are treated with care. "Release," she said gently, though the key was already released. She closed her eyes for one small blink, the kind that thanks a moment without making a speech. For a heartbeat, nobody moved. The taller manager's jaw actually dropped, then closed as he let out a small, amazed laugh. The second manager made a sound like he wanted to clap and didn't know if clapping was allowed. The guard's shoulders softened, and his mouth tilted into a brief, proud smile as if he had known all along the ending would be simple and good. Marcus stood very still by the door, eyes on the engine gauge cluster glowing calm green. He looked younger suddenly, not because his face had changed, but because surprise had rinsed the tired from his expression. He turned toward Aisha like someone facing a teacher after a lesson that mattered. "You did it," he said, "not big, not loud, just true." Aisha nodded once. "The starter was sticking," she said. "The tap freed it. The clean connections helped. It should be inspected and likely replaced. For now, let it idle here. I do not recommend turning it off until you're parked where a tow can reach easily or until a technician can look at it. But I will follow your decision." She did not step closer to the car. She kept her tools neat, her voice even, her center calm. She was careful that her words stayed simple and useful, not decorated. She pointed two fingers toward the battery clamps. "These are snug now. The ground is cleaner. The relay is seated." The starter answered to a tap, which is a sign it's near the end of its good days. It gave you a warning in a safe place. That is a gift. The taller manager let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for 10 minutes. That was, he searched for a word that was not impossible or lucky. He picked the right one. "Professional," he said. "That was professional." Aisha didn't bask. She gave a small grateful smile and wiped a harmless line of dust from the wooden handle with her gloved thumb. "Thank you," she said. "I will put tools away now so the area is clear." The second manager, to his credit, found a new tone too. "Do you need anything else?" he asked. He sounded ready to hand her the whole building's lights if she asked. "Water? Another flashlight? Paper for notes?" "I'm fine," Aisha said. She began to return items to her little metal box, one piece at a time, each in its place. The sound of the engine filled the quiet in a friendly way. The guard spoke softly into his radio to update the brief note he'd made earlier. His words were dry, procedural: "Vehicle now running. No incident. No hazards." But his eyes, when he looked over at Aisha, held a very human respect. A set of elevator doors opened at the far end. Two late staffers stepped out, saw the idling coupe and the small circle of people, and slowed for a second. The guard lifted a hand that said, "All good," and they moved on. The garage kept breathing its cool, steady air, a calm witness to a small test met with care. Marcus walked around the front of the car and stopped across from Aisha. The engine hummed between them like a line drawn in pencil, clear, thin, not a barrier. His face was open and serious in a kinder way than before. "I owe you an apology," he said. It wasn't a performance. It was a sentence he felt and then said. "My words earlier were careless. I made a joke because I was frustrated. It wasn't fair to you." Aisha met his eyes without sharpness. "Thank you for saying that," she said. "You adjusted course. That matters." She gave one small, practical nod toward the idling engine. "You also gave permission clearly when it counted. That matters too." The taller manager shifted his weight and looked away, embarrassed by the mirror of the moment. The second manager cleared his throat, and the sound carried a quiet message of his own, an inward promise to choose better words next time. Aisha closed the latch on her metal box with a neat click and set the wooden handle back on the cart. She removed her gloves, rolled them inside out, and tucked them in the side pocket. Then she wiped her hands with a small square of clean rag and looked at the guard. "Would you please note," she said, polite but firm, "that the engine is running and the vehicle should not be switched off until a safe plan is in place." "I've noted it," the guard said. He looked at Marcus. "Sir, would you like me to call the on-call maintenance back to schedule an inspection or call a tow service to meet you near the entrance?" Marcus glanced at the gauges, then at Aisha. You could see him weighing more than one variable: time, policy, responsibility, and something else, the memory of what he had said and what she had done. "We'll move it to the loading zone near the security desk," he said. "It's flat and easy to reach." He looked to Aisha. "Does that sound right?" "Yes," Aisha said. "That is a good plan." He nodded and looked like he wanted to say more but was not yet sure how to shape it. Before he could find the words, footsteps sounded behind them. Aisha's co-worker Priya, done with the floor above, came down the ramp with her own cart, saw the small gathering, and blinked at the sight of the idling car. "Everything okay?" Priya asked, a little breathless. She moved closer, recognized the model of the coupe, then recognized the expression on everyone's faces. "Oh," she said, eyes brightening, "did you do the starter trick?" The taller manager turned toward her. "You know about that?" he asked, surprised. Priya smiled, warmth first. "Aisha helped me on the road last month," she said. "My car threw its belt. I was scared. She was calm. She got me to a safe shoulder and talked me through what to ask the roadside service. She knows her things." The second manager blinked. "I didn't know," he said, as if he were adjusting a lens on a camera and seeing a sharper picture now. Aisha waved a hand gently. "It was a small moment," she said. "We all have skills hidden under uniforms. Priya is an artist with floor schedules. She made the Tuesday route work like music last week. Priya chuckled and dipped her head, happy to be seen in return. The little trade of respect floated over the idling hum and settled something good in the air. Marcus looked between Aisha and Priya with genuine interest. "You studied this?" he asked Aisha, not as a test, but as an invitation to tell the true story in the simple way she preferred. "I grew up helping in my mother's small garage," Aisha said. Her voice stayed even, not performing. "I started a basic auto mechanic course and paused to help my family when my mother's health changed. The night shift here gives me steady hours. I like to fix small things when I can. It makes places kinder." She did not add any decoration. She did not ask for anything in those words. She simply placed them on the table like tools in a clean line, each with a job. Marcus listened the way people listen when they realize they almost missed something that matters. "Thank you for telling me," he said. Then, with a small glance toward the managers, he added, "Thank you for the work you already do that no one sees." The taller manager nodded, a simple yes. The second manager looked at Aisha with a different kind of attention, newly curious, as if he had just learned an important detail about a teammate he thought he knew. Aisha looked at the coupe once more. "One more note," she said, "practical again. If an aftermarket tracker was installed recently, it might cause a small parasitic drain if wired poorly. That's separate from the starter. A technician can test for that with the car off. Tonight, let's focus on parking it where help can reach easily." Marcus's eyebrows lifted a notch. "Yes," he said. There was a device added for insurance. He gave a small, almost amused exhale, not at anyone but at the way little details explain the day. "I'll have it checked." The guard stepped to the driver's side. "I can escort you to the loading zone," he said. "We'll keep this path clear." Marcus nodded. He slid into the seat and, before closing the door, looked back at Aisha. "Will you walk ahead and point where you want me to stop?" he asked. It was a small request, but the meaning inside it was large. "You set the safe line, I will follow it." "Of course," Aisha said. She pushed her cart forward, leading the way with calm steps, and the red coupe rolled behind at a slow, respectful crawl. The two managers followed at a short distance, talking quietly but without the nervous edge from before. Priya fell in next to Aisha and whispered, "Proud of you," in a way that felt like a hand squeeze. At the loading zone, Aisha lifted her palm. Marcus eased the car into the spot and set the brake. The engine kept purring, steady as a metronome. The guard took a position to keep the small area clear and called the desk to let them know a vehicle would stay idling for a short while for safety reasons. Aisha positioned her cart out of the way and faced the group. "We are set," she said. "On-call maintenance can meet you here, or a tow can take it to your preferred shop." She met Marcus's eyes one more time. "Do you need anything else from me?" Marcus stepped out and closed the door gently, as if even the door deserved respect now. He looked at the idling car, then at Aisha, then at the two managers, who straightened their shoulders a bit as if preparing for a different kind of meeting than the one they had expected when they came down. "What I need," he said, "is to make something right that I set wrong with my words." He did not rush. He turned to the guard. "Please note the names of everyone present." He turned to the managers. "We're going upstairs for 5 minutes to talk to HR about how to honor a promise in a way that is fair and clear." He took a breath and turned back to Aisha. "You set the standard here tonight with clarity, safety, and care. Whatever happens next, that won't be forgotten." Aisha didn't glow or shrink. She stood the way she had stood all along, steady. "Thank you," she said. "I will be here finishing the level. Please tell me where you want the cones placed if the car stays longer." "We will," Marcus said. He looked at the coupe, then at her toolbox, that small metal box with a latch, and a smile touched his mouth, quiet, a little humbled. The turning point was not the engine's start alone. It was this, the moment a careless sentence turned into careful attention, and a uniform stopped being the whole story of a person. The elevator doors opened with a soft chime. The two managers stepped in with Marcus. He paused at the threshold and glanced back once more toward Aisha and the humming car and the guard and Priya. His nod was simple. Then the doors closed, and the sound of the engine again filled the calm loading zone like a steady, kind drum, marking the beat between what had been and what would come next. Upstairs, the building felt different from the quiet garage. The carpet softened footsteps, and the glass walls held the city lights like calm water. Marcus walked with the two managers toward a small conference room near HR. He did not speak right away. He turned his phone face down on the table when they sat, as if to show the meeting would get his full attention. A few minutes later, Elena from HR arrived with a thin folder, and Mr. Cho from legal joined by video. The guard was invited to give a brief account. He stood straight, spoke clearly, and then returned to his post. The details were simple and solid, the words spoken, the permission given, the careful steps, the outcome. Elena opened her folder. Her voice was warm but professional. She thanked the group for acting with safety in mind downstairs. Then she put the problem in plain words. The company had rules about gifts, about fairness to all staff, about not creating risky promises. At the same time, a promise had been made in public. Even if it began as a poor joke, it had been heard and then repeated with permission and witnesses. The company had values about dignity, respect, and keeping one's word. Tonight, those values needed to be visible. Mr. Cho spoke next from the screen. He explained the options in simple terms. Transferring the car was possible but carried practical steps, taxes, title, insurance, and a precedent that could invite future trouble if framed the wrong way. Offering a recognition bonus of equal value was also possible, but only if done inside policy and with clear documentation. Another path, he said, might be better for everyone, connect recognition to growth. If the person wanted training or a new role that matched the skill she showed, the company could build a clean, fair plan. Marcus listened, hands folded, jaw relaxed now. He did not look for a way out. He looked for a way forward. He asked the question that turned the air to purpose, what helps her most? The taller manager, who had made the first joke, shifted in his chair. His face was open, and his voice was small but honest. He said he wanted to apologize to Aisha in person. He said he had meant no harm and had created it anyway. The second manager nodded, his earlier smile fully gone now, replaced by a single clear wish to do right. Elena suggested they invite Aisha to join. If this was about her, she should be in the room where decisions were made. Marcus agreed at once. A quick call went out. Aisha arrived 10 minutes later with her cart parked neatly by the HR desk and Priya waiting just outside so she would not have to walk into a room alone. Aisha stepped in, calm as ever. Her uniform looked the same as it had downstairs, but something in the way people looked at her had changed. They saw the person, not just the role. Elena greeted her kindly and offered a glass of water. Aisha sat, placed her hands on the table, and listened. Mr. Cho repeated the options clearly. He explained what each would mean. He did not rush. He did not fill the air with complicated words. He spoke the way people should speak when they want to be understood. Aisha asked 2 questions. The first was about rules. Will any choice break a policy that protects other staff? She asked. It was such a pure question that it quieted the room for a second. No, Elena said. We will make sure any choice fits the rules or we will not offer it. Aisha's second question was about work. If there is a role where I can use my skills with proper training, I want that more than a car. A car is nice, but a path is better. She said it like a truth she had held for a long time. Marcus looked relieved, not because a car was saved, but because the shape of the night was turning from repair to growth. He spoke to her directly. He said he was sorry for the words he had thrown out in frustration. He said she had set the standard for how to act under pressure, clear, safe, respectful. He said he wanted to honor both the public promise and her wishes. Elena laid out a plan in simple blocks. The company would cover the full cost for Aisha to complete her mechanic certification, including books, exams, and fees. They would create a facilities technician apprentice role for her, with a fair salary band and a clear mentor. They would shift her schedule to balance study and work. They would include a signing bonus equal to the appraised value of the car, paid in a way that was kind to her taxes over time. They would also give her the option to receive the car instead, if she changed her mind before anything was signed. All of this would be written in a letter tonight and reviewed again in the morning so nobody felt rushed. Aisha listened and kept her breathing slow, the way she did in the garage. She asked who would mentor her. Elena said the name of a senior technician known for patient teaching. His name was Ruben. People called him steady as a level. Aisha smiled. She had seen him fixing a rooftop air handler once. He had moved carefully and said thank you to the wind when the panel did not blow away. She trusted that kind of person. The taller manager cleared his throat and stood. He did not make excuses. He apologized to Aisha face to face. He said he had learned something tonight that he should have learned long ago: do not make people small to make a problem feel small. Aisha accepted his apology with quiet dignity. She did not dress it up or push it away. She said, "Thank you." Then she added a simple boundary: please do not make jokes like that about anyone else either. The second manager spoke next. He admitted he had lifted his phone at the wrong time. He said he had a short clip of the engine starting. He said he would delete it if she wished, and he would sign a note to confirm that. Aisha thought for a second and then gave a modest, human request. "Please keep this private," she said. "Let the lesson be inside the building, not online. If the company later wants to tell the story, use my first name only, and ask me first." Elena nodded at once and wrote those words exactly. Mr. Cho added that any internal share would be opt-in and respectful. Marcus agreed, and his voice held zero urge to turn a person's moment into a company message without consent. With the main decision clear, Elena printed a short agreement. It was not the final contract. It was a simple letter of intent written in plain language that a person could read without a dictionary. It said what the company would do and what Aisha could expect. It named the mentor, the salary band, the start date in 2 weeks, and the study support. It also set a small meeting for tomorrow to go over details with time and care. Aisha read it slowly. She did not rush to sign. She asked one more question that showed the shape of her heart. "Can another person on our team be considered for training funds too?" she asked. "Not tonight, not to take from this. Just as a future idea. Many people have skills that do not show in their job title." Elena wrote a note to herself and underlined it. Marcus leaned back in his chair and let the idea land in his mind. It fit. It was the right size. It was honest. He said the company could set up a small pilot program. Staff could list skills or interests. Supervisors could sponsor a few each quarter for micro courses, certifications, or shadow days. HR could run it with fairness and quiet pride. He said they would call it Skills in Plain Sight. Aisha smiled at the name. It sounded like something she would have written on a label in a neat drawer: useful, simple, true. They all signed the letter of intent. Marcus shook Aisha's hand. It was not a showy moment. Their hands met in simple thanks. The taller manager and the second manager stepped forward and shook her hand too, not out of duty, but out of changed respect. Elena collected the papers and promised copies by morning. Mr. Cho said good night from the screen and added one last note: "Thank you for showing me a good meeting," he said. "We do not get many at this hour." They returned downstairs together. In the loading zone, the red coupe still idled, steady as a heartbeat. The guard gave a small wave from his post. A mobile technician from the contract shop had arrived with a diagnostic tablet. He greeted the group, listened to a short summary, and nodded. He said the starter was indeed at the end of its life and should be replaced. He could install a new unit in the morning. For tonight, he recommended leaving the car in place with cones and a note for safety, and having a ride take the owner home. Marcus agreed. He looked at Aisha and asked if she needed a ride as well. She smiled and said she would finish the level. Priya had already rolled her cart closer to help, happy to work side by side and make the last hour go fast. The guard placed cones and a clear sign near the coupe. He logged the plan at the desk. Everything was tidy. A small group of night staff passed by. They did not know the full story, they did not need it to sense what had changed. They saw how the managers carried themselves. They saw how the CEO stood, not in the center, but in a circle with others. They saw Aisha's calm with a different kind of light around it now. The feeling that moved through the space was not loud. It was steady, like the engine's hum. It said, quietly, that the place would be a little better tomorrow than it had been today. Before Marcus left, he turned to Aisha one more time. He asked if she would be willing, in a week or two, to join a small safety talk for staff and share basic car care tips in simple steps. He promised there would be no spotlight, no show, just a practical session with coffee and clear language. She said yes. She liked teaching small, useful things that made people feel less alone when something failed in a parking lot or on a street. Priya squeezed Aisha's hand and then let go, ready to work. The taller manager and the second manager walked toward the elevators with a quiet promise in their shoulders to do better by their teams. Elena returned to her desk to write a clean summary while the facts were fresh. The guard made one last call to confirm the morning repair. The mobile technician checked the cones and left a tag on the steering wheel that said, in simple words, "Do not switch off. Starter to be replaced. See work order." Aisha pushed her cart back to the painted lane and set her mop in the wringer. The level felt like it had at the start of the night, quiet, bright, but it also felt new, as if someone had opened a window and let a good breeze in. She mopped a small spill near the vending machines, refilled a paper towel dispenser, and wiped a clean line across the top of a safety sign that had gathered a fine layer of dust. Simple things. True things. Work that keeps a place kind. As she worked, her mind did not race. It moved at the steady speed of her steps. Tomorrow would bring forms and plans. The week after would bring new tools, new notes, new ways to care for systems that people used without thinking. A month after that might bring a class where she would sit quietly in the front row with a pen and a neat notebook and write down words she already loved: voltage, ground, tolerance, torque. She would bring the same patience to that room that she brought to a garage and a hallway and a floor schedule. In the loading zone, the red coupe kept humming. In the small HR printer, warm paper slid out with a copy of the letter. In the security log, a few tidy lines told a simple story. In Elena's notebook, there was a new heading with a name underlined: skills in plain sight. Aisha finished the lane and turned her cart. She walked past the cones and gave the car a friendly glance. Rest well, she thought, as if speaking to an old machine that had done its best. She did not need a ribbon on the night. She needed only what she had always needed: clear steps, honest work, and a path that opened when someone kept a promise. Behind her, the building breathed its quiet breath. Ahead of her, the buckets gleamed, the rags were clean, and the last corners of the level waited for her careful hands. The confrontation of the night had not been loud. It had been a set of choices. People made better choices, one after another, and the result was not fireworks but something stronger. It was trust. Monday arrived soft and clear, a few weeks after the night in the garage. The building woke slowly with first light on the glass. Aisha reached the staff entrance just before her new shift. Her uniform had changed in a small way, a facilities badge sat beside her name, and a compact company tool pouch rested on her belt. She still pushed a cart sometimes when needed, because she respected every kind of work. But now she also carried a tablet for work orders and a small meter in a zip case that made her smile every time she felt its weight. It felt like a promise kept. Ruben met her by the service elevator with a gentle nod. He was the senior technician Elena had named. People said he moved like a level, and it was true. Nothing rushed him, nothing slowed him. "Morning," he said. "We'll start with a walk system. Speak if you listen." They stepped into the quiet mechanical hall where the air felt cool and honest. Pipes ran like clean lines on graph paper. Panels hummed. Aisha loved the sound. It was not loud. It was steady. Ruben handed her a simple checklist: air handlers, pressure gauges, a small pump that liked attention. "You read first," he said. "Tell me what you see before I tell you what I know." Aisha walked through each item without hurry. She touched panel doors with the back of her hand first, the safe way to check for heat. She listened for changes in fan tone. She watched a gauge needle hold steady at a mark and wrote it down. When they reached the little pump with a history of fussing, she leaned close and smiled. "Slight chatter," she said. "But within reason. We note it and check again at midday." Ruben nodded. "Good. You are patient. Patience stops small problems from growing old." They moved on to a rooftop air handler. The city's morning wind brushed their faces as they opened the panel. Aisha noticed a loose anchor screw on a cable tray. She did not assume she was allowed to fix it, she asked first. Ruben handed her a torque driver. "Your turn," he said. She set the screw tight, not too hard, just true. He watched the way she held the tool, the way she counted in her head, the way she put the driver back in its slot. "You're careful," he said. "Careful makes buildings kind." At 10, they met Elena for a short orientation. The new apprentice program had a simple, clear page with Aisha's name, schedule, mentor, and study support. Elena also showed a draft announcement for a wider idea: skills in plain sight. The note invited staff to list skills or interests that did not show in their job title. It promised small funds for short courses, exam fees, or a day to shadow another team. It used simple language. It was not marketing. It was an open hand. The email went out that afternoon. Replies began to arrive before evening. A security guard wrote that he was studying basic networking at night and wanted to shadow the IT desk for 2 hours a week. A cafeteria cook asked for help with a bookkeeping course, so she could handle orders with more confidence. A night porter wanted to improve his English and also signed up for a free public speaking meetup that HR had found nearby. None of it was fancy. All of it was real. Each line felt like a small light turning on somewhere quiet. At lunch, Priya found Aisha in the break room and slid a little paper bag across the table. Inside was a perfect samosa and a note that said, in clear block letters, "Proud of you." Aisha laughed softly. "You made Tuesday roots sing," she said back, and Priya beamed like she had been seen. The next day, a short invitation appeared on the lobby screens: Car Care Basics, a practical talk with Aisha, facilities apprentice. Thursday 4 p.m, loading zone. Simple tips. No fuss. There were 3 bullet points: how to read your battery, how to check a fuse, when to call for help. It was exactly the kind of thing Aisha liked: small, solid, useful. On Thursday, she set up a folding table with Elena and the guard. She placed a demo battery with fake corrosion, baking soda ready, a fuse panel from a training kit, a handful of labeled relays, a printed sheet with step-by-step checks, and a sign with gentle rules: stay clear of moving parts, never guess when you can know, ask for help early. She kept the tone friendly, not expert. She wore her normal uniform and her new badge and tied her hair back under the same simple cap. People came. They came because they were curious. They came because they had seen something change in the building and wanted to be part of it. The taller manager and the second manager stood near the back for a moment, unsure if they should be seen. Then they moved forward, not to perform, but to learn. Marcus arrived without an entourage and took a place off to the side where he could listen without pulling focus. Aisha began with a story, but only the useful part. Many problems sound big because fear is big, she said. We make fear smaller by making steps clear. She showed how to look at a battery without touching it, how to spot corrosion, how to clean it safely if you are trained and allowed, or how to say the right words when you call for help. She explained what a fuse looks like when it is good and when it is blown. She showed a relay and said, "This is a small box that does a simple job," and you could see shoulders relax because the words were simple too. She did not rush. She let people ask questions. Someone asked about jump-starting a car in rain. Someone else asked how to know if a check engine light meant panic now or make a plan. Aisha answered each in plain steps. If you don't know, do not pretend. Ask. If you are scared, step back and breathe. Fear is real. You are not weak for feeling it. You are wise when you name it and then follow steps. At the end, she handed out a one-page checklist that she and Ruben had made that morning. It was a little thing you could keep in a glove box. It said, lights bright, dome light dip, corrosion, ground strap, fuses seated, call for help. It even had the building's security number for staff who parked on site. People thanked her as if she had eased a private worry they had carried for years. That weekend, Aisha took a bus to her old neighborhood and stood outside the small garage where she had grown up. The sign was faded. The glass was dusty. Inside, hand tools hung on a pegboard in neat rows. Her mother's label still sat above each outline: 10 mm sockets, pliers, feeler gauge. For a long minute, Aisha just stood in the doorway and let memory settle like warm light. She thought of afternoons when voices laughed over gentle clinks. She thought of the last months when she had paused everything to be present for someone who needed her more than any class. She thought of the night in the garage at work, when steps and a wooden handle had opened a new door. With the signing bonus, she bought simple things: a new bench light, a safe jack, a box of clean shop rags. She did not try to make the space fancy. She made it safe and kind. She put a handwritten sign on the door: Saturday Skills Car Basics for Everyone, 10 to 12. Free. Priya designed a small flyer with clear words and a black and white drawing of a battery and a heart. A friend from payroll printed a stack at cost. People came the first Saturday. A grandfather with a steady cane. 2 students who shared one scooter. A nurse who worked nights and wanted to stop being afraid of a warning light. A delivery driver who wanted to understand what a mechanic said so he could ask better questions. Aisha stood under the new bench light and spoke in the same simple way she always used. She did not pretend to know everything. She promised to show what she knew, to find out what she did not, and to write down both in a neat notebook. The room felt like a good kitchen where everyone learns how to make food that fills and calms. Back at the company, the Skills in Plain Sight program started to grow in quiet ways. A monthly email listed 3 names and 3 small wins. The security guard finished his first networking module and helped install new cameras in the bike cage with IT watching and nodding. The cafeteria cook balanced an order sheet and smiled when the numbers lined up like clean tiles. The night porter read a short update to his team in his own words and looked taller after. Each time, Aisha read the email and felt the building stand a little straighter. One afternoon, Marcus stopped by the loading zone where Aisha and Ruben were labeling a new panel. There was no big speech. He simply asked how the apprentice schedule felt, whether the study nights were balanced well with work, and what tools still needed ordering. He said the new starter in his coupe worked like a charm and pointed to a bright tag in the engine bay that read, in neat letters, date, torque, checked. He laughed softly. "Reuben's handwriting," he said. Reuben lifted 2 fingers in a quiet salute and went back to his labeler. They walked together through the lobby. The taller manager and the second manager passed by and paused. They thanked Aisha again, not with heavy words, but with the easy, everyday respect that matters most in a hallway. It felt like a stone had been set in the right place and the path over it would now hold. Late that same week, near closing time, a young analyst ran into the garage with worry in his eyes. His car would not start. He made the shape of a question with his hands and then stopped, embarrassed. "I'm sorry," he said to Aisha, who was checking a light fixture. "Do you have a minute?" "Only if allowed." He sounded like someone trying not to grab attention from the air. Aisha smiled. "I can look with you," she said. "But I also want you to meet May." She waved over a co-worker from custodial who had started attending her Saturday sessions faithfully and who had listed electronics hobbyist in the skills program. May came over with quick, careful steps and bright focus. Aisha stepped back, let May ask the questions, let May lead the checks. "Battery. Good. Dome light dip. Small. Relay. Resetted." The analyst turned the key. The engine started. May stood up, shy and proud, and Aisha clapped once softly, like a teacher who knows the best part is seeing someone else succeed. "Thank you," the analyst said to both of them. He looked at Aisha. "I've heard about that Thursday talk. I couldn't come last time. Will there be another?" "There will," Aisha said. "Bring a friend." The seasons moved. The building had its busy days and its quiet ones. Aisha learned lockout-tagout procedures by heart and trained on a rooftop unit under a pale winter sun. She passed a certification exam and taped the envelope from the mail to her fridge for a week before opening it, just to enjoy the feeling of a milestone waiting. She visited her mother's old garage every Saturday and watched the same faces return with new questions and new confidence. She kept her cart neat. She kept her toolbox neater. She wrote thank you to the wind when a rooftop panel did not blow away, just as Reuben did. Sometimes she would see the red coupe glide into the garage with a sound like warm tea being poured. The new starter caught every time, clean and sure. Marcus would lift a hand from the wheel if he spotted her. She would return the gesture with a small nod, and that would be enough. The night in the garage lived in their minds, not as a story about a car, but as a story about how people should treat each other when a small test shows who they are. One evening, after a long, good day, Aisha finished a round in the garage and looked down the painted lane where the lights made soft pools on concrete. She thought about the first minutes of that night, the click, the quiet, the careless words, the careful ones that followed. She thought about Elena's neat folder and Mr. Cho's clear voice on a screen and Reuben's patient hands and Priya's samosa and the guard's steady notes. She thought about May's proud face and the analyst's relief and a piece of paper with skills in plain sight printed at the top with 3 names below. She thought about a small bench light over a pegboard with old outlines that matched her mother's handwriting, and a room where people learned not to be afraid of a fuse. She put her palm on the hood of a pool car and felt the gentle warmth. Machines and people, she thought, are not so different. They work best when they are seen, when their connections are clean, when their grounds are sound, when someone respects the steps and listens for small signs. She smiled, not at anything grand, but at how a steady life is built clear task by clear task, promise by promise, day by day. Behind her, footsteps sounded. 2 new interns walked past, chatting about a dashboard and a deadline. They saw her badge and asked, polite and hopeful, "Are you the one who does the car class?" Aisha nodded. "Yes," she said. "Thursday at 4. We use simple words. We make fear smaller. They thanked her and moved on. She watched them go and then turned back to her work, content. The building breathed. The city outside breathed. The night would come, and she would be ready for it, the way she had been that first night, with clear eyes and steady hands. If someone's engine clicked in a corner of the garage weeks from now, maybe it would be May who listened first, or the guard with his new notes, or an intern who showed up to the Thursday talk and carried a paper that said dome light dip. Corrosion. Ground strap. Aisha would be nearby, smiling, ready to help if asked, ready to let others lead if they were ready. Because that was the best part of a promise kept, it kept traveling. And if the story had to be summed in one line, it would be simple and true: respect people. Titles do not measure talent. When you keep a promise and open a path, a whole place learns to stand a little taller.